Right, champions. We've done the majority of work to this. We're just doing a bit of fine tune. I was having a bit of a listen. The bias is a little bit unstable. I've got a feeling it's to do with this pot board up here. The bias setup on these things is a little bit sketch. It's sort of a balance thing, but it's not really a balance thing. It's like two pots feeding each pair, one feeding each pair, but they sit on a little bit of a seesaw, so you adjust one and the other one moves and you've got to go back and forth. So yeah, it sort of is balanced, but it's not great design basically, but you can get it to work. But what's been happening is I'll get it to work, it's settled fine down to about 60%. Then you play it for a bit, let it sit, and you'll come back and that side will be low, so you'll adjust it up, and then you come back and it's high, and you play it for a bit and it's high, and then you adjust it back down, vice versa. So I did give those pots a clean, and they're set screw pots too, they're not your average pot, so I don't really want to replace them. But I might give them another few cleaning cycles, see if that sorts it out. If not, we might just maybe disconnect them and put a trim pot somewhere. Yeah, maybe just put a trim pot in that hole and block the hole off. It's probably better off anyway. You don't really want the customer having rear accessible bias settings. It's a recipe for disaster. But otherwise it's sounding pretty good. I'll try not to kill the microphone again. The distortion on this thing actually sounds alright. Like all Fenders, you boost the bass and it just goes flubby. It's alright for single note shit, but chord stuff gets a bit messy. We've got the treble boosted there, you can lay that off and it's pretty smooth and creamy. There's not really a defined level where it starts breaking up. It's nice and gradual, which is what I like. You push it a bit hard and things get messy though. So round 5 is nice with this thing. It's got a shawbucker in it. And the neck pickup. Not bad actually, I don't mind it. The clean channel is a bit darker. Oh, I'm switch your channels. The clean channel is a little bit darker than your average twin. That's with the the treble boost pulled out, which is, I think it's bright cap. With it pushed in, things are a bit dark. Things are a bit dark compared to your average twin, but you pull out the treble pot for that boost. That sounds like your average twin without the bright switch turned on. But yeah, I mean it's usable, it's musical, it's really punchy. Just got to sort this bias. So you can see it's dropped down to 1.3. That's the voltage drop across the transformer there. It's pretty responsive to the bias controls. They're just real touchy, so I'm thinking they're just dirty pots, but we'll look at that. The only other thing I found was the reverb recovery stage had an open plate resistor, so I've got one subbed in there. I'm just going to go over the thing and check everything else, and then lift the board and solder that one, install that one properly, probably put the neighbouring one. Might upgrade the plate resistors for the phase inverter too, because that's a tiny little carbon film there, and the one that was in there was a half watter and it blew, so and there's another one of those half waters there. They're the ones you find in every Fender amp, and they always seem to go open circuit or somewhere near it. So I might preemptively change a few of the plate loads there, and hopefully we're all sweet. We resoldered a bunch of connections. I'll go over the whole lot briefly before too long of what we changed and what we did. But yeah, this just a little quick demo. What do we have here? I was just cleaning these pots, trying to sort out this slightly unstable bias. Look a little closer. At some point this resistor, oh come on little phone, you can focus, can't you? It's 2022. This little resistor down here is let the smoke out at some point. So it still appears to be being a bit of a resistor, but our readings would be way off. I'll take a measurement of that just out of curiosity's sake, but we're going to change that out because that's your cathode bias sense resistor, because there's your little probes. I wasn't using them anyway, but that's in series with the cathode, so that will affect the current that's able to flow. So yeah, that could have been well, the output valves were changed in this. Supposedly one had blown, that was the terminology. So I reckon that's probably taken that resistor out in the process. I'm pointing at the resistor while I'm looking at the back of my phone. You guys can't see my finger. My God, I'm dumb. So now you can see me point at stuff. That there, R216, is the resistor in question. So looking at the schematic, 216, so that's the cathodes, that's the test point on the rear panel, and then that's your 1 ohm 1 watt resistor to ground that allows the current from both these valves to pass through it to ground and allow the valve to conduct and amplify and do things. There's one on the other side, R215, that one appears fine. I'll measure both and we'll see where we're sitting with that. So multimeter, wake up champion. Zoom out a little so you can see the reading in the case that you care. Got 1.1 ohm. 0.1's probably the lead resistance. You short them out. 0.2, 0.1. So 1 ohm. The other one, still 1 ohm. Oh, okay, hang on. The plot thickens. So this resistor on the back, I didn't think anything of, because some of these amps have some bodge wires and stuff in them from the factory. Someone's bypassed that resistor with another 1 ohm. So that's why everything's still working. So that. Right, so here's our resistor in question. Let's see if we can get the camera to focus. They always seem to blow up on the bottom side where it's not immediately obvious, but you can see the shit stain on the circuit board there where I took it out. But it's not fully open circuit. That's varying somewhat, a couple of meg. Let's see what happens when we give it a bit of heat. Right, so we've got the resistor there. We'll give it a bit of heat, like we would experience in an amp. And the resistance is dropping. Look at that. This is only set to what, 150 degrees or something. It's on the lowest setting for heat shrink. So yeah, it just goes to show that's not going to severely affect. I mean, 3 meg is bugger all for a cathode resistor. It's essentially going to be out of circuit, but just goes to show that is not stable. It's changing. And it's not open circuit, so that's why burnt parts should be removed. They've got carbon on them. Carbon can absorb moisture and conduct, and something burns, you remove it. Do it the properly way, don't be lazy. Properly way? Proper way. Brad's grammar lessons. Alright, so I have done some work to the bias circuit, but these two 6L6s are still sitting stabby. Start again. These two 6L6s are sitting stable in their dissipation. these two are stepping up and down, so it's going between two levels of dissipation. One of those two is probably the culprit, but they share the same resistor, so same side of the output transformer, so we're just averaging the measurement across both of them. So one of them's probably the culprit, one of these back here. So I've got a new match quad of 6L6s, JJs in there at the moment. Everything's rock solid, but the problem now is that we're only sitting around 30% bias with the controls maxed out. So the bias range is out. So we should be getting around 2.3 volts, I believe it was. There. That's with them maxed out. So that at the moment is sitting around 35%, which is pretty cold. So we might look at adjusting the bias range next. That is providing that the customer wants to go ahead with a new quad of valves. So one of the four is causing issues with bias stability. You could just set it to the colder end of the bias, so when it decides to jump to its upper step, then it would still be at a safe level, but it's a sign that the valve's on the way out. Now, he said that they've just been replaced. Perhaps, but the date code on them shows 03. I was 1 year out of high school in 03, so they're not new. They're either second hands or new old stock. Now, there's not much scratching on the base from the bear claws, but that doesn't mean whatever amp they were out of previously had bear claws, bear traps, sorry. You can see there's not much scuffing in the base. So it looks like they've only been inserted into this amp once, but where they came from, anybody's guess. So I might give him a quick ring and just go, what's the deal with these valves, where they come from? Because one of them's unstable and it's a match quad. And if he decides to put in a new set, I'll change the bias range by a component swap, value swap in the bias divider, and we'll bring it back into a good range, and then we'll bias it and put it on the burn-in bench and just make sure everything's stable for a good couple of hours before we put it back in the cabinet after giving it a clean. Yeah, so what started off as just a single recap, he just wanted these two changed because they were the source of the hum. Many different little issues throughout the amp. When amps leave here, I want them to be 100%, right? I don't want to do a half job, because those half jobs always come back under warranty because the owner didn't notice the secondary fault until the first fault was cleared. Because how are you going to notice little crackles and a little bit of excess hiss when there's a blasting hum coming through the speakers? You're not. But are you going to be okay with those crackles and pops and hisses now that the hum's been fixed? Probably not. So they need addressing. That's why some of these jobs blow out a little bit. I try to keep it as minimal as possible, but at the end of the day, I'm using time. Time is the most valuable resource. I need to charge for it. And yeah, it puts me in a little bit of a tricky spot when you give them an estimate and then you find other stuff that you had to do work in order to find in the first place. So we try and work with them, and little give, little take, and just try and make it a fair repair, and just overall, as long as the thing's bloody reliable and they don't have to come back for 20 years, generally everyone's happy and it's not an issue. But sometimes budget, particularly at the moment, I do understand budget is pretty important for a lot of people, so we try and keep it to a minimum. Anyway, enough rambling, I'm going around in circles. So one thing that's very common on older CBS or post-CBS era Fender amps is the eminence drivers and the paint flaking off them and then exposing the rusted frame. Not really much you can do about that other than replace the speaker economically. It's not worth painting them or prepping them or anything, and results would vary. But this one, its labels are upside down anyway. And they tend to corrode on the top where the dust settles and collects moisture, but underneath they look pretty fresh still. So what I might do with these ones is flip them over 180 degrees just so it looks a bit nicer from behind. Don't we all wish we had that going for us? There you go, that's a bit nicer, isn't it? It's not 100% O's, it's not a complete Bobby Dazzler. It's not fully schmicko, but you know, it's a lot better than it was. And the screws were loose anyway, so we tightened all of them up and just checked everything was cool. And the only thing is now I'll have to live with the signal being 180 degrees out of phase because we flipped speakers over, but not really, I'm just joking.
I'm down here having fun. I'm hiding from customers. I'm trying to remember shadows. Listen to that snap. Pushing the bright switch. Go to the other channel. Don't want all that reverb.
So there we have it, champions. Another one out the door. Hopefully lasts a very long time now. So new lease on life. So see you on the next one, and as always, you know where to find me. Right here.